Hey everybody, and welcome back to our Port Swigger Web Academy series. In this playlist, we're going to focus on SQL injection or SQLi labs. SQL injection is a type of cyber attack where malicious code is injected into a SQL query to gain unauthorized access to a database. Such an attack can result in data theft, modification, or even deletion of data or tables within a database. There are roughly 16 to 17 labs as of now in Web Academy pertaining to SQLi attacks, and we'll touch on each and every one of them. I'll provide not only the solution, but an explanation as to why the solution works for each lab, if applicable. Just an FYI, I have a playlist for every category in the Web Academy. So if you ever find yourself stuck on a lab, feel free to look through the playlist to find not only the solution, but the explanation. And hopefully it'll give you the clarity that you need. But if not, feel free to drop a comment below and I'll respond as best I can in the comments. But if 3 or more people ask the same or similar question, I'll more than likely create a video giving much more detail. So that being said, let's get into it.
So this is part 2 of the 4-part series of creating a union attack. We learned in the last lab that in order to create a union attack, or for a union attack to be possible, you had to meet 2 requirements. One, you had to know that you had to determine the number of columns, and now 2, you have to know the data type of said columns. In the first one, we determine the number of columns. In this one, we're going to retrieve data only by knowing the data type within the database. And we're going to do that using null value. And null value is a placeholder that signifies a missing or unknown value. And we want to put the placeholders in the known columns and replace them basically one at a time with either numerical or string values, basically trial and error, in order to figure out the data types in the column. So that's what we're going to do in this lab. All right, same thing. We have a website. There's clearly tables. There must be a database on the back end. So union attacks step by step. You don't skip a step. First thing you have to do is determine the number of columns. So go back, copy that command. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Order by, pinned it here. All right, and just increment all the way until you get to the issue, like an error. Okay, so the error happened at order by 3. So that means that there's 3 columns. The next thing we want to do is determine the data type. So in order to do that, we use null value. So if you go back, we know that there's 3 types. We want to copy this, not 3 types, 3 columns. So you copy this, paste it here. Great. Now, there's an easier way to doing this, and I'm pretty sure people are going to really get on me about not using burp suite, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to first intercept this here to make it easier. Cool. And then I'm going to send this to repeater. This just makes it easier because you're going to have to just keep changing these values. So I'm going to get rid of, so you can tell that it's encoded. So just be mindful of that. Keep this, because I believe it's a space. But yeah, so you want to change the first null. It's just a trial and error thing. So you might want to try first a string. So I'm going to replace that and try a string. Okay, so I got a 202 OK, which this would pop up on the screen. You would see 1 null null. And if you look at the request, I believe you'll see that too. Yeah, so 1 null null. Now we want to try the next one. Is the next one also a string? So I'm going to keep that here because now we know that this is a string. So I'm going to just leave that there. But now we need to know, is this a string? That too is a string. All right. Is this a string? That too is a string. So all of these are strings. Let's go back to our lab and let's replace all of these with strings. It works. Now, how do we go about solving this lab is the question. This lab will provide a random value that you need to make appear within the query results. To solve the lab, perform a union attack that returns an additional row containing the value provided. This technique helps you determine which columns are compatible with string data. Oh, and I forgot, I went back over. At the top here, it says make the database retrieve the string, this right here. So now I'm going to take this and, I messed up my, right, okay. So I'm gonna go back on and I'm going to put that here. So that's an error. So now that we know what's a string, what's not a string, we wanna see which column is gonna let us retrieve that string. So I'm gonna go back, and like I said, this is where a repeater would help us, but just gonna keep pressing back, and boom, I put it in the second column, and it had us retrieved here. So we learned that all three columns were string. However, we were looking for a particular string. And so the first one, we just replaced null with the string that we were looking for until we found it. And you see it's also in the database. So there you go. That's how you solve the lab.